goddess because she's considered the reincarnation of one.
So tonight, Bob Brown on the National Geographic Channel bring us her story. How would her parents cope with the crowds and the cameras? And should they risk changing their goddess into a normal girl?
On this face, in these eyes, is the story of an infant whose destiny could have been in the dust or the stars. She was born in a remote area of India where disabled children sometimes are left to die in the fields. But instead, she was viewed as a goddess.
Everybody looked at her with great curiosity. She was God-sent, she was a reincarnation, and they almost worshipped her in the village.
It is a spellbinding tale of religion and science and the future of a child whose life was in danger despite the ceremony that surrounded her. It begins in a poor, remote village in the Bihar region of northeast India, where a woman named Poonam Tatma gave birth to an extraordinary child, a girl with 4 arms and 4 legs, the image of a Hindu goddess. The goddess, named Lakshmi, is worshipped as a deity of wealth and good fortune, and so this newborn girl was also named Lakshmi.
After she was born, for a whole month, crowds of people came to see her. It was said that Lakshmi had been born here.
The Tatma family earned the equivalent of around $200 a year from farming, couldn't afford even basic medicines, and worried that they couldn't care for Lakshmi when she was older and still unable to stand or walk. They could have profited by charging others money to see her, but chose not to. They also turned down an offer to sell her to a traveling circus. More than 1,000 miles away, the destiny of the infant girl would be shaped in quite a different manner. When she was 2 years old, photos of her came to the attention of Dr. Sharan Patil, a leading orthopedic surgeon at Sparsh Hospital in Bangalore. He was in an office at the hospital when I spoke with him from New York. Had you ever seen pictures like that before?
Not at all. Of course, we had read about it in our books, medical books, but medically it was very fascinating because it was such a rare thing.
And so Dr. Patil went on a journey to the remote Araria district in Bihar to meet Lakshmi and her family. His arrival in the village caused a stir. Cars are rarely seen in Bihar. I noticed that you approached the family and Lakshmi very gently when you asked if you could conduct an examination of her.
They had their reservations to start with. They were wondering if we had some ulterior motives towards this.
It was Lakshmi's first real medical examination, and she reacted like most children would, protesting loudly. She has 2 arms and 2 legs that function normally, the uppermost limbs on each side of her body. But below them, in a mirror image, are 2 more sets of arms and legs. What Dr. Patil discovered is that this figure that many associated with the image of a goddess was, in fact, a case so rare that only a few have been known in history. The lower part of Lakshmi's body was a type of conjoined twin called a parasitic twin.
One of the babies is alive, but the other baby doesn't exist as another individual, but the 2 bodies are fused together. Let me put it this way, the entire parasitic part of Lakshmi's body was feeding on Lakshmi's for nutrition, for oxygen, for energy, for everything else.
Because of the parasite, Lakshmi's health was in danger, and possibly so was her life. Dr. Patil believed the parasitic twin should be surgically removed. In Lakshmi's case, of course, it was more than just a medical issue. That was made apparent during a local fair that Dr. Patil visited with Lakshmi's parents. A fair to celebrate the holy day of the goddess Lakshmi. Once this little girl who was the image of Lakshmi entered the crowd, it was clear that she had a profound effect on the villagers.
She has 4 hands and 4 legs. That's why we pray to her. She's the goddess.
Some of them even folded their hands in respect for the little girl, which was quite amazing.
Is it possible that because she had been considered a good omen to the village, that some might consider surgery a bad omen?
It was very much possible. I'm sure a lot of the people in the village had those ideas in their mind that if something was done to Lakshmi, things might not be so good for them anymore.
What kind of a chance did she have to live a full life if she didn't have the surgery? What were her chances of survival?
The chance would be very minimal that she would go through even teenage.
To reassure the parents, when some villagers wondered whether to trust Dr. Patil, he promised all of the family's medical expenses would be covered. And he knew that because of their experience in coping with Lakshmi's disability, goddess or not, her parents realized that the quality of her earthly life hung in the balance.
The practicalities of managing the little girl and her growing up were big questions they wanted to be answered. Every day was different for them, and every day the child's health fluctuated. So she was really living on the edge.
After having weighed their options carefully, Lakshmi's parents finally decided to take her to Bangalore for the surgery to remove her conjoined parasitic twin. A crowd gathered to say goodbye on the day of the family's departure. Poonam and Shambhu Tatma, the parents, their son Mithilesh, and Lakshmi, who, if she returned, would return as a child and not a goddess.
When 2020 returns, the doctor's first look and a troubling discovery. Will surgeons be able to change a goddess into a girl?
Poonam, we're taking her now.
It was a dilemma that involved science and religion and the destiny of a small child who was born in a remote village in India. Because the child was born with 8 limbs, she resembled and was named for the Hindu goddess of wealth and good fortune, Lakshmi. And many in her village revered her as a reincarnation of Lakshmi. But this doctor from the city of Bangalore, Sharan Patil, believed she needed a surgical procedure to remove what to him was a medical condition that science had seen only rarely, a conjoined parasitic twin that threatened her life. The reason the infant Lakshmi seemed to have an extra pair of arms and legs. And so the Tatma family traveled more than 1,000 miles from their village to Sparsh Hospital in Bangalore, a state-of-the-art facility where there was an agonizing wait while doctors performed a battery of tests to see whether surgery was even possible.
There we go. First films of the little girl.
Yeah, amazing. The first time you see anything like this.
These X-ray films revealed complications. Lakshmi's spine was joined to that of her parasitic twin, and doctors would have to figure out how to separate the spine without affecting Lakshmi neurologically. They also discovered that Lakshmi had only one functioning kidney.
One of the functioning kidney was lying in the parasitic twin, and the other one was lying in Lakshmi's body.
But there was only one heart, correct?
That's correct. The functioning heart was only one.
Poonam, we're taking her now.
On November 6th of 2007, Lakshmi was wheeled away from her parents. Pediatric surgeons first made an incision to study the placement of Lakshmi's internal organs. Then, still in the early hours of what would be a 24-hour operation, they removed the functioning kidney that was in the parasite and transplanted it into Lakshmi. In the next phase, neurosurgeons began the dangerous separation of Lakshmi's spine, where it was connected to the spine of the parasite.
We erred on the side of safety and preserved some part of the spine of the parasite.
9 hours into the operation at 5 p.m., Dr. Patil went to update the parents on the progress of the surgery. Lakshmi's mother, Poonam, was nearly impossible to console.
Poonam, listen to me. Look at me. Being worried won't help. If you cry like this, I'll become weak too.
As the surgery continued, Dr. Patil began to bring the bones of Lakshmi's pelvis together so they could support her vital organs once the parasite was no longer attached.
I want this extra bone.
Yeah, that bone.
This bone and equally this bone.
At midnight, 16 hours into the operation, doctors finally dissected and removed from Lakshmi's body the conjoined parasitic twin.
The minute we removed that parasitic twin, it was quite an emotional moment because I had gone through this particular step in my mind many, many times in the weeks before.
Poonam, all is well. All is well. The operation is over. The operation was successful. Lakshmi is healthy. Poonam, you can smile now. Now is the time to laugh.
In her room, recovering from the surgery after sleeping soundly, Lakshmi began to open her eyes and move her fingers. For the first time, her parents saw the child who once had been the image of a goddess as an average 2-year-old with 2 arms and 2 legs.
She had one strange look on her face, looking down at her own body. I don't know how to put it, but I almost felt that she was telling me, "Doc, good job done."
Now, 7 months after the surgery, Lakshmi and her family are back visiting their village. But they will move on to the desert state of Rajasthan, where Lakshmi is attending a school for disabled children. Her mother, Poonam, has given birth to a 3rd child, a baby sister for Lakshmi. And Lakshmi is learning to raise and balance herself and take her first steps. She'll need additional surgery on her spine, where it once was connected to the parasite, and on her feet, which were turned inward.
Life was very difficult for her before the operation. Now she can walk on her own. Her cousin comes and they play all day long.
There remains this image of Lakshmi as the goddess she once resembled, made by a village craftsman before her surgery. But things have changed. One villager who said he still believes she is a goddess was also straightforward about his reasons why.
If she wasn't the goddess, you guys wouldn't be here.
Lakshmi's parents have not changed their beliefs.
I think for every parent, the child is a goddess, so to say, and the child is special for sure.
Do you believe there was a higher power involved in all this?
It is the wishes of many people, it is the prayers of many people. It is the will of the child to live and to come out of this procedure. Everything put together, to come together, it has to be some kind of divine intervention.
The whole family believes she's a goddess. She will always be a goddess. As long as she lives, her name will be Lakshmi.
A special hour on the